An Apache woman in the basement says she's my wife. I thought I just bought a cheap cabin. Jax Carter wiped the red dust from his hands and squinted at the cabin before him. It sat at the edge of Red Mesa, a lonely frontier town that had seen better days. The sky was a harsh orange, twin suns beating down relentlessly, and the wind carried the faint hum of hovering wagons far in the distance. Jax had traveled for weeks across these barren plains, looking for a place that wouldn't cost him all his credits. He had no family, no attachments, just a restless urge to find a quiet corner of the world. This cabin looked perfect. From the outside it was small, almost pitiful. The roof was crooked, the wooden walls were scarred by time, and the paint had long since peeled away. But it was cheap, far cheaper than anything else in the area. Cheap was good. Cheap meant he could fix it himself and make it his own. He pushed open the door, which creaked like an old frontier saloon gate. Dust swirled in the weak light as he stepped inside. The smell hit him immediately. Old wood, damp earth, and something faintly metallic. It wasn't unpleasant, just odd, like the cabin had been waiting. "All right, let's see what we've got," Jax muttered, pulling a flashlight from his belt. The main room was small but tidy, a few broken chairs, a table with scratches, and a fireplace that hadn't seen a fire in decades. Nothing special, just a cabin. He moved toward the back and noticed the trap door leading to the basement. It was old, barely hanging on its hinges. Curious, he lifted it and shined his flashlight down. The stairs were narrow, descending into darkness. Normally he wouldn't bother with basements, but something about this one called to him. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped down. The air grew colder, heavier. His flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing stone walls and an old wooden chair in the center. And sitting in that chair, bound but calm, was a woman. Jax froze. "Who? What?" he stammered. The woman looked at him, her dark eyes steady, and said in a voice as soft as the wind outside, "You are my husband." Jax blinked. He rubbed his eyes. "Cheap cabin, yeah. That's what I bought. Not... I think you have the wrong guy," he said cautiously, taking a step back. "I just bought this cabin." The woman smiled faintly. "No. You are Jax Carter. I have waited for you." Jax swallowed. His mind raced. He had seen frontier towns full of oddities, but nothing like this. "Waited for me? How? Who is she?" "Name's Nailey," she said. "I'm Apache, and I am your wife." Jax's hand hovered over the blaster at his hip, just in case. Wife? What is this? Some scam? A con? He had seen holofakes before, but this wasn't a projection. She was real, flesh and blood, and she wasn't moving like a threat. I don't even know you," he said finally. Nailey tilted her head, a shadow of sadness in her eyes. "I know you. Across time, across worlds. You and I are bound, even if your mind has forgotten." Jack shook his head. "Look, lady, I just want a quiet life. Cheap cabin, no trouble, maybe a little farming." That's it, her expression softened. "Quiet life? You've never known quiet, Jax, and you never will, not while fate waits for you." He frowned. The air felt heavier. The shadows in the basement seemed to press closer. He didn't know if he believed her, but something in the way she spoke, the certainty, made him uneasy. Then the rumble came. At first it was faint, like distant hover bikes kicking up dust. Then it grew louder, shaking the cabin. Jax's instincts kicked in. He turned to Nailey. "You didn't tell me about this place, did you?" She shook her head. "They're coming for me and for you." Jax cursed under his breath. Figures. Nothing is ever simple. He grabbed a loose pipe from the floor and held it defensively. "Who's coming?" "Outlaws," she said simply. "Mercenaries hired by people who want what you carry. They'll stop at nothing." Jax frowned, confused. "What I carry?" "Lady, I just have a pack, a blaster, and a few spare credits. That's it." Nailey's eyes glimmered. "Not here. Not yet. But soon you will understand. You hold more than you think, Jax. More than your memory allows." He looked around the basement again. Just stone walls, dust, a chair, and her. He wanted to believe it was some trick, maybe a scam for his credits. But she didn't look desperate. She looked certain, and certainty in a frontier like Red Mesa could be dangerous. The rumble outside became a low roar. Jax peeked through a cracked window and saw them. Hovering figures in black armor, moving like predators. Hoverbikes hummed in formation. Mercenaries. Definitely mercenaries. Definitely trouble. Jax turned to Nailey. "Let's assume I believe you. What now? She stood, her movements fluid and precise. We leave. Now. He hesitated. Leaving meant abandoning the cabin he'd just bought. But staying meant facing an army of killers in a basement. He didn't like his options. She stepped toward a section of the wall. There was a panel, nearly invisible under the dust. She pressed a sequence of buttons, and a section of the stone wall shimmered, revealing a glowing portal, like a doorway made of liquid light. Jax's jaw dropped.
Portal?
Seriously? Yes, she said calmly. Step through or fight them here. Your choice, cowboy. He glanced back at the door, at the empty desert outside, at the mercenaries closing in, then at Nayeli. Something in her eyes told him that running wasn't cowardice. It was survival. And maybe destiny. Together, they stepped into the portal. The world shifted, the light stretching and bending around them. Dust, stone, and desert winds mixed with something strange, alien. When the portal released them, they were no longer in the cabin. The ground beneath them was a desert, but unlike any Jax had ever seen. The sand shimmered with metallic streaks. Twin suns burned overhead, their light reflecting off strange plants with metal leaves and robotic insects that scuttled in the shadows. Jax swallowed. Well, this isn't my cabin anymore. Nayeli smiled, a hint of relief and amusement. No, but we're alive, and that is more important. He shook his head, looking around. Alive, yeah, but what now? Where the hell are we? You're on a frontier, Nayeli said, but not just your frontier. This is a crossroad between worlds, and you, Jax Carter, are at the center of it. Jax exhaled slowly. He wasn't a man who panicked easily. He had faced raiders, storms, and sandworms larger than any ship. But this was different. He didn't understand it. He didn't know the rules. And he didn't know if he could trust Nayeli, though right now, trusting her seemed like the only way forward. A shadow passed overhead, and Jax instinctively ducked. A hoverbike, sleek and black, zoomed past in the distance. The mercenaries hadn't given up. They were tracking him. Looks like we're not alone, he muttered.
No, Nayeli said softly.
And they won't stop. Not until they get what they want, or until we fight. Jax clenched his fists. Frontier life had always been about survival, about facing danger head-on. This was just a bigger, stranger frontier than he had ever imagined. He looked at Nayeli again. There was courage in her eyes, a quiet strength that made him believe that together they might just make it. He nodded once. All right, let's figure out what we're really up against. The twin suns blazed overhead as Jax took the first careful steps into this new desert, this new world. The cabin he had bought was gone. The simple life he had dreamed of vanished with the portal. But maybe, just maybe, the adventure had just begun. And somewhere deep inside, Jax Carter felt a spark of excitement. Because out here, in the alien desert under twin suns, with a woman claiming to be his wife and mercenaries on their trail, life was alive, and alive was better than cheap. The alien desert stretched endlessly before Jax and Nayeli. The sand shimmered under the twin suns, glinting like molten metal. Strange mechanical insects scuttled across the ground, their legs clicking with an unnatural rhythm. Hovering cacti swayed slightly in the warm breeze, scanning the environment with blinking sensors. Jax wiped sweat from his forehead and squinted at Nayeli. So, this is your idea of a friendly welcome? Dessert? Robots? Mercenaries? Nayeli didn't answer immediately. She scanned the horizon, her sharp eyes missing nothing. It's not just my world, Jax. This desert is a bridge between your world and mine. It is where the boundaries weaken. Jax raised an eyebrow. Bridge between worlds? Lady, I just want a cheap cabin and a quiet life. I don't do bridges. Interdimensional ones, anyway. Nayeli's expression softened, but her eyes were serious. You have always been more than a cabin owner, Jax. You've forgotten, but the truth is written across realities. In some worlds, you are my protector. In some worlds, you are my husband. Jax shook his head, frustrated. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been married. Nayeli's gaze pierced him, as if reading something he didn't understand himself. You have, Jax, in a world that exists alongside yours. And now the echoes of that world are pulling us together here. He wanted to argue, but before he could, a sharp whirring sound cut through the air. Jax ducked instinctively. A small mechanical scorpion, its metallic claws snapping, scuttled toward them from a sand dune. Its red sensors glowed like twin eyes. Not again, Jax muttered, drawing his blaster. "I swear, whatever you're hiding, it better be good." Nayeli moved beside him, her movements precise and practiced. "They are drawn to you, Jax, not just the mercenaries outside. This desert reacts to your presence. It senses what you carry."
Jax frowned.
"What I carry? Lady, I barely carry a pack of supplies. I'm not a walking treasure chest." Nayeli's expression was grave. "You carry more than you know. Memories, skills, echoes of lives you've lived. And the mercenaries, they know this. That is why they hunt you." Jax shook his head, trying to keep his mind on the immediate threat, the scorpion. It lunged. He fired his blaster, the energy beam scorching the sand. Sparks flew as it hit the creature, but it didn't stop. Nayeli leaped forward, using a small device from her belt. A pulse of energy struck the scorpion, and it froze, then collapsed. Jax exhaled sharply. "All right, that's new." Nayeli turned to him. "There is much you do not understand, but you will. Come. There is a safe place nearby." They moved cautiously across the desert, keeping low, avoiding the patrolling drones that glided silently above the dunes. After a few minutes, Nayeli stopped and pointed to a ridge of rocks. A small cave was hidden among the jagged stones. "Here, we can rest and talk." Inside the cave, it was cooler, the shadows providing some comfort. Jax lowered himself to the ground, exhausted. "Talk, huh? Sure. Go ahead. Enlighten me."
Nayeli nodded.
She activated a small device on her wrist. A holographic map flickered to life in the air, showing two overlapping grids. One was the desert they had just crossed, the other, a different world entirely. Cities floated, rivers glimmered like liquid silver, and strange creatures moved across the landscapes. "This," Nayeli said, "is your world. And this," she gestured to the other layer, "is mine. They touch only here, in this desert. And this bridge is where fate pulls us together." Jax rubbed his eyes. "Okay, I'll admit, that is a lot. But why me? Why now?" She looked at him with something close to sadness. "Because you are more than a man who buys cabins. You are the key to balance between worlds. You have skills, courage, and a heart capable of understanding. In my world, Jax, you've saved many lives. Here, you will have a chance to do it again." Jax felt a chill. He had spent his life running from responsibility, running from attachments, and now a woman claiming to be his wife in another world was telling him he was destined to protect lives he had never seen. "Destiny," he muttered. "I don't know if I'd buy that." Nayeli smiled faintly. "You will when you have no other choice." Just then, the ground shook slightly. Hoverbikes hummed in the distance. Mercenaries. Jax cursed under his breath. Figures. Nothing is ever simple. Nayeli moved to the entrance of the cave, her eyes scanning. "They are close, and they are prepared. Jax, you must trust me. I will show you the way to the memory chamber." Jax frowned. "Memory chamber? What is that?" "It is where your past, present, and alternate lives converge. Where you can see what you truly carry. There, you will understand why they hunt you, and why I'm here." Jax didn't like the sound of it, but he knew he had no choice. Trust Nayeli, or die. He followed her cautiously through a narrow path, the sand crunching under their boots. Shadows danced in the dunes as the mercenaries drew closer, their black armor glinting under the twin suns. After a tense walk, they arrived at a cliffside. Nayeli pressed a panel embedded in the rock. A section of the cliff shimmered and rippled, revealing a hidden chamber inside. The air inside smelled faintly of ozone and old stone. "This is it," Nayeli whispered. "The memory chamber. Here you will see yourself as you were, and as you could be." Jax hesitated, staring at the glowing doorway. "And what if I don't like what I see?" She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you will have the courage to change it. You always have." Taking a deep breath, Jax stepped inside. The chamber was circular, with walls covered in strange inscriptions that glowed faintly. In the center, a pedestal held a crystal-like device, pulsating with soft light. Nayeli gestured toward it. "Place your hand here." Jax did as she said. Instantly, visions filled his mind. He saw himself in countless scenarios, fighting alien raiders, navigating strange cities, saving lives in worlds that should not exist. He saw moments with Nayeli, smiling, laughing, standing beside him in battle. Each vision was vivid, real, and impossible. He staggered back. This is insane." Nayeli's voice was calm. It is real. All of it. You are more than you know, Jax. And they hunt you because they want that power, that knowledge. But you, together with me, you can protect it. Jax clenched his fists, trying to process the flood of images. So, I'm some kind of multiverse hero now? Nayeli smiled faintly. You are the man I always knew. And now, you must decide. Will you run, or will you fight? Before he could answer, the chamber shook violently. The mercenaries had found them, blasting through the cliffside with advanced weapons. Sparks flew, rocks fell, and the ground trembled. Jax grabbed his blaster. Guess that answers my question? Nayeli activated a device on her wrist, opening a shimmering barrier around them. We fight smart, Jax. Not wild. Use what you've learned. Trust your instincts. The first mercenary stepped through, armor black and menacing. Its eyes glowed red. Jax fired, energy beams sizzling through the chamber. Nayeli struck the next one with a pulse from her device, sending him crashing into the wall. Jax realized something crucial. The visions he had seen weren't just memories. They were training. Skills he thought he had never used came rushing back. He moved with precision, shooting, dodging, and thinking 3 steps ahead. The chamber became a whirlwind of light and shadows, of blaster fire and mercenary attacks. And through it all, Nayeli stayed calm, guiding him, protecting him, a partner he didn't fully understand yet, but already trusted. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, the last mercenary fell. Jax leaned against the pedestal, breathing heavily. Nayeli joined him, wiping dust from her clothes. You did well, she said softly. Better than I expected. Jax shook his head, still catching his breath. I didn't know I had all that in me. I didn't even know any of this was real. She smiled. It is real. And it is only the beginning. The desert, the mercenaries, the memories, they are all pieces of a puzzle. And you, Jax, are the key to solving it. He looked out at the glowing desert beyond the chamber. Strange, dangerous, impossible, and yet alive. His cheap cabin, his quiet life, all of it seemed like a memory from another life. Nayeli's hand found his again. Are you ready to step fully into this, Jax? To see what you are meant to do? Jax took a deep breath, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down on him. Then he nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess I am. And together they stepped out of the memory chamber, ready to face the desert, the mercenaries, and whatever else this strange alien frontier could throw at them. Because life on Red Mesa and beyond was never going to be simple. The desert was not quiet. The twin suns beat down relentlessly, turning the sand into a shimmering sea of heat and light. Strange metal cacti cast sharp shadows, and robotic insects scuttled across the dunes, their clicking legs echoing in the vast emptiness. Jax Carter moved cautiously beside Nayeli, his blaster drawn, every sense alert. The events in the memory chamber had left him shaken but determined. He knew now that the mercenaries were not just after him. They wanted the knowledge and skills he carried across dimensions, skills he didn't fully understand yet, but was beginning to trust. They'll come, Nayeli said softly. They will never stop. And they have new tricks. Jax grunted. New tricks. Fantastic. I just love this place more every second. They had been traveling for hours using rocky outcrops for cover, avoiding patrolling drones that glided silently above the dunes. Occasionally, Jax could see the distant hum of hoverbikes as the mercenaries tried to locate them. But the desert was alive, unpredictable, and that worked in their favor. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. Jax ducked instinctively. From the sky, a squad of black-armored mercenaries descended using anti-gravity harnesses. Their weapons glowed faintly, charged with energy capable of cutting through stone. They found us, Jax muttered. Figures. Nayeli moved forward, her movements precise, almost fluid. We have no choice. We fight smart. Follow my lead. The first mercenary landed a few meters away, aiming a pulse rifle at Jax. He fired his blaster instinctively, energy beams colliding with the mercenary's shield. Sparks flew, sand erupted into the air, and Jax rolled behind a rock. Nayeli activated a device on her wrist. A pulse of energy shot out, knocking another mercenary off his feet. Keep moving, she shouted. Jax ran beside her, leaping across uneven sand dunes. Okay, you're good, he admitted, firing at incoming attackers. Really good. I told you, Nayeli said, without looking back. You just had to see it for yourself. The desert shifted as they moved. Sand dunes became cliffs, metal cacti swayed closer, and mechanical insects scuttled faster. Jax realized that this world wasn't just a backdrop. It was alive. It responded to them, to the presence of the mercenaries. Small tremors shook the ground when enemies approached, and sometimes strange creatures, half organic, half robotic, emerged from the dunes, curious or hostile, he couldn't tell. "Great," Jax muttered. "We've got metal scorpions and mercenaries. Perfect frontier mix." They reached a canyon that split the desert in two. The walls were jagged, with glowing veins running through the rock. Naeli pointed to a narrow path winding upward. "This will lead us to higher ground. From there we can see their approach." Jax followed, breathing heavily, muscles screaming. "I swear, every day is worse than the last." As they climbed, a massive shadow darkened the canyon. Jax looked up to see a creature unlike anything he had imagined. A towering beast, its body a mix of metal and flesh, eyes glowing bright red, moved with terrifying speed. Its claws scraped the rock walls, sending sparks flying. "Another new trick?" Jax shouted. Naeli didn't hesitate. She pulled out a small device, and a bright pulse of light struck the creature. It faltered but didn't stop. Jax realized then that brute force wouldn't work. They had to think. "Follow me," Naeli shouted, leading him through a twisting path along the cliffside. The creature followed, but its massive size made it clumsy. Jax took a deep breath, drew his blaster, and aimed for the glowing core at the center of its chest. He fired. The energy beam struck, and the creature roared, staggering back. Sparks flew from its metallic frame. It lunged, but Naeli grabbed Jax and pulled him to safety, rolling down a small incline. "You're getting the hang of it," she said, smirking. "Not bad for someone who thought a cabin was dangerous." Jax grunted, brushing off sand. Yeah. Funny. Real funny." They reached the top of the ridge. From here they could see the mercenaries regrouping in the canyon below. The aliens were still roaming, but seemed distracted by something in the distance. Jax realized then that this world was unpredictable, full of opportunities if they used them wisely. Naeli gestured to a small panel embedded in the rock. "Here, we can open a temporary portal. It will lead us closer to the memory chamber's extension. There, you will understand more and gain an advantage." Jax frowned. "A portal again? Can we not just run?" "Running won't save us," Naeli said firmly. "You've learned that now. Fighting smart is the only way." Jax nodded, trusting her judgment. He had no choice. They activated the portal. The air shimmered, bending light like liquid. Jax felt the familiar pull, the strange sensation of being stretched across worlds. Then they stepped through. They arrived on a plateau that overlooked the desert. Below, the mercenaries were searching, frustrated, and the strange robotic creatures moved around unpredictably. The plateau was covered with a network of glowing circuits embedded in the ground. Jax realized these were some kind of traps or sensors. "These lines," he said, pointing, "they're not natural. Someone made them." Naeli nodded. "The rogue scientists. They've been experimenting with dimensional travel, trying to capture the knowledge you carry. That is why the mercenaries hunt us. They are hired to retrieve you." Jax swallowed hard. "So the cabin, the desert, the memory chamber, all part of their trap?" "Partly," Naeli said. "But it also brought us together. And it gave you a chance to see who you truly are." Jax shook his head. "I don't know if I like it. This is all too much. I just wanted a quiet life." Naeli smiled faintly. "Quiet life, that was never your destiny, Jax. You were born for the frontier, for adventure, and for this fight." Suddenly, a shadow moved across the plateau. Jax turned sharply. A mercenary with cybernetic enhancements charged toward them, blaster aimed. Jax fired, energy beams colliding with the mercenaries' shields. Sparks flew, and the mercenaries staggered but advanced. Naeli activated a device, sending a pulse of energy that threw the mercenary backward. Jax realized that working together they were unstoppable. Her devices, his instincts, and the skills he had rediscovered in the memory chamber made them a deadly team. Another mercenary appeared from behind a rock. Jax ducked rolling and fired a precise shot. The enemy fell. He felt a thrill, something he hadn't felt in years. Danger, yes. Fear, yes, but alive. Truly alive. The plateau was quiet again. For now. Jax and Naeli took a moment to catch their breath. Jax looked out at the alien desert below, the mercenaries regrouping, the robotic creatures wandering. "Okay," he said, finally catching his breath. "I get it. This is not my cabin. This is something else entirely. Nayeli nodded. It is our frontier. And we must claim it, protect it, survive it. That is the next step. Jax took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on him. All right, I'm in. Let's finish this, whatever this is. Nayeli smiled. Good, because the next challenge will test everything you've learned, and you will need to trust me completely. Jax grinned, a mixture of fear and excitement in his eyes. Trust you? Lady, I'd barely understand half of what's happening, but yeah, I'll trust you, for now. The twin suns burned brighter as they prepared to descend into the desert below, the mercenaries closing in, and the alien frontier full of unknown dangers waiting for them. The adventure was far from over, and Jax Carter, once a man chasing a cheap cabin, had become something more, a cowboy of worlds, a protector, and a man discovering the depths of his own destiny. The desert was quiet in a way that felt wrong. Jax Carter stood on the edge of the canyon, the twin suns hanging low in the sky. Their light painted the sand in gold and red, making the alien world look almost peaceful. Almost. He knew better now. This frontier never stayed calm for long. Below them, mercenary hoverbikes moved like insects, searching. They were patient. Dangerous. They're waiting, Jax said, tightening his grip on the blaster. Like wolves. Nayeli stood beside him, her face calm but serious. They are waiting for you to make a mistake. Or a choice. Jax glanced at her. Feels like everything comes down to that lately. Choices. They had reached the final ridge, the place Nayeli had spoken of many times but never explained fully. Embedded into the rock was a massive structure made of glowing stone and ancient technology. It looked older than the desert itself. This is the convergence point, Nayeli said, where worlds meet and separate. Jax frowned. And let me guess, I'm the key. Yes, she replied softly. You always were. Before Jax could respond, the air behind them crackled. A heavy figure stepped out from behind a rock formation, taller than the others, stronger. His armor was reinforced, his movements precise and confident, the mercenary leader.
Rax.
Jax Carter, Rax said, his voice cold and metallic. You've caused us a lot of trouble. Jax raised his blaster but didn't fire. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. Rax laughed. You don't understand what you are. What you carry. The scientists want you alive. Me? I just want this over. More mercenaries appeared, surrounding the ridge. Escape was no longer an option.
Nayeli leaned closer to Jax.
This is it. If they take you, they will tear your mind apart. Every memory.
Every world. Jack swallowed.
And if I fight? She met his eyes. Then you decide the fate of both worlds. Rax raised his weapon. Enough talking. The battle exploded into motion. Jax moved without thinking. The training, the memories from the memory chamber, all of it flowed together. He fired, rolled, took cover, and fired again. Energy beams lit up the ridge as mercenaries fell back. Nayeli activated the convergence point. The structure glowed brighter, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The sky above began to shift, clouds twisting unnaturally. Rax charged forward, faster than the others. He slammed into Jax, sending both of them crashing into the sand. Jax felt the breath leave his lungs. You could have lived quietly, Rax growled. Instead you chose chaos. Jax coughed, then smiled faintly. Story of my life. He triggered a short-range pulse, knocking Rax back. The mercenary leader recovered quickly, advancing again. Nearby, Nayeli struggled to hold the convergence point stable. Jax! I can't keep it open for long. Jax looked at the glowing structure. Visions flashed in his mind. Two worlds, separate but connected. One where humans spread across harsh frontiers, another where Nayeli's people lived, hidden and hunted, and one final truth. He understood now. Rax lunged again. Jax sidestepped and fired point blank. Rax fell to one knee, sparks flying from his armor. This ends now, Jax said. Rax laughed weakly. You still don't get it. You can't save both. Jax turned away from him and ran toward Nayeli. I know, Jax said, but I can build something new. He placed his hand on the core of the convergence point. The world froze. Time seemed to stretch. Jax saw every version of himself. Cowboy, soldier, protector, husband. He felt Nayeli's presence beside him, steady and strong. He made his choice. Instead of sealing the worlds apart, he merged them. The convergence point released a wave of light that swept across the desert. The mercenaries were thrown back, their systems failing. The sky stabilized. The ground stopped shaking. When the light faded, the world was different. The desert remained, but now human structures and Nayeli's world existed together. Frontier towns stood beside alien stone. Mechanical creatures moved peacefully among settlers. The worlds had become one frontier. Rax lay unconscious, his weapons dead. The mercenaries retreated, afraid of what they no longer understood. Silence returned. Jax dropped to one knee, exhausted. Nayeli rushed to him, holding his face. "You did it," she whispered. "You chose us." Jax smiled tiredly. "Guess I really did buy more than a cabin." Days passed. The new frontier began to settle. Humans and Nayeli's people learned to live together. Jax and Nayeli became guardians of the convergence, protecting the balance they had created. The old cabin still existed, half in the human world, half in the new one. It stood as a symbol of what had changed. One evening, Jax sat on the porch, watching the twin suns set. Nayeli joined him, sitting close. "You remember now," she said. "Don't you?" Jax nodded. "Not everything, but enough." She smiled. "That's all that matters." Jax tipped his hat, looking out at the vast frontier ahead. It was dangerous, unpredictable.
But it was alive, and so was he.
For the first time, Jax Carter wasn't running from destiny. He was riding straight into it.